Welcome everyone. I know it's been a little while since I've done a video, but let's just say life happened and things got really busy there for a while. But I'm back and I'm looking forward to making new content for this channel. Now, what I'm planning to do in this video is review a few of the books that I've been reading while the spring semester at SUNY Oneonta is ended, or was ending. So, yeah, let me just dive straight into it. Okay, this first one is Lisa Robertson's Boat. And one thing I will say about this book is it's typographically rich. And what I mean by that is usually a lot of times when you're reading a poetry collection, you'll see poems aligned left, and I mean, they vary in terms of length and whatnot, but usually by and large, a lot of poets do not really diverge from that form of setting up a poetry collection. Uh, Lisa Robertson, on the other hand, is doing something completely different with the page. And let's see if I could show you a part of this just to illustrate. Yeah, so in other words, in many regards, she's reminding me a lot of John Ashbery, particularly during at the era when he created As We Know, which is a poetry collection that I really love and admire, and honestly, I think I prefer that even more than Self-Portrait in a Convict's Mirror. I think it is that good, and I think it should be that groundbreaking, honestly. Though I understand that Self-Portrait in a Convict's Mirror won all the awards, and but I think As We Know is better, just in my personal opinion. And Lisa Robertson, she's doing something similar in terms of how she set up the page. She has those two columns, and but what really distinguishes what she's doing from John Ashbery is the following. Now, in As We Know, that first poem is nearly a 70-page poem that's broken into two columns, one that's on the left and one that's on the right of the page. And those two columns are supposed to be read simultaneously. Now, of course, years later, John Ashbery admitted, okay, you know, even though that was his expressed desire, he understands where that's very hard to pull off in real life. Now, Lisa Robertson's poetry collection, it's not quite the same way with the two columns, because you could read it and they're not necessarily two separate columns. Rather, they're two columns with the same thought or same idea, but broken up. So there's always this gap or space in between the words in our collection. And in fact, there's sometimes where she cuts through the middle of words themselves. And so there's like that gap, or if I could use literary theorist speak for a second, there's an apori, or apori, however you pronounce it, going on. Or in other words, there's this gap or fissure. And it seems like Robertson is playing off of that throughout the whole collection, or at least a good portion of the collection. I think later on, as I'll show you, there are some other poems where she abandons that and it goes to more of a traditional style of setting up poems on the page. But even with those, there's enough difference in nuance in how it's set up typographically to make it really intriguing and really fun. Now, in terms of thematics, I'm just going to read the back cover, and I think that might give you a sense of what's in the pages themselves. Whatever girl dares to read just one page is a lost girl, but you can't blame it on this book. She was already ruined. So that gives you a sense. I mean, there's definitely commentary on the body about womanhood and what that means or could potentially mean. And I think there's a lot of other themes that Robertson is playing with throughout this collection. So overall, in terms of the typography and the thematics of this, I think it's definitely a worthwhile read, and and particularly for anyone who wants to see how poetry can be formatted differently than what is traditionally accepted, which is basically a line left and sometimes okay. Now there, like I said, usually it's a line left. Now, I mean, there's been a number of poets who have also justified their lines as well on the page, so that's not as atypical. But I feel that what Robertson is doing, particularly highlighting and emphasizing white space, is very unique. And like I said, well worth your time to check out. Now, this next book, my father gave it to me to check out during the Easter holidays. And this is by Louis L'Amour. Yes, the same Louis L'Amour of Western and Romance fame. And this is called Smoke from This Altar. And what this is a collection of his poems, which honestly, until my dad brought this to my attention, I was not aware that Louis L'Amour ever wrote poetry. But yes, indeed, he did. And looking through this, I mean, a number of the poems stick with what I term end stop rhyming. And honestly, that in and of itself is a skill to pull off, and particularly to do it well. I have done a number of poems where I try to employ this, and they don't work. They really don't work. And now there are some poems in here which, I'm not going to lie, they don't speak to me as much as some others, but when it actually works, I think Louis L'Amour does quite well. I think there's one poem that I like that my father does too, entitled My Three Friends. And that's a poem where, if nothing else, besides the rhyming, he's also discussing what it's like to be in a war zone. And, well, backdrop to the poem. It's basically the narrator, he was in a war zone and he killed 3 people. And the ghosts of these 3 people visit him. And I think just in terms of the actual setup and the narrative thread of the poem makes it a very compelling piece in and of itself. And something that, honestly, I was not quite expecting. And that's the thing about Louis L'Amour. I mean, if you give this poetry collection a chance, it will surprise you. And in a good way, I feel. I think there's also this one poem that I was checking out just before doing this video, which is called I Haven't Read Gone with the Wind. So this is more like a, for lack of better terms, like a cheeky explanation of why he hasn't read Gone with the Wind. But not once again, it shows that Louis L'Amour was more than just simply a Western romance writer. He was someone who liked to stretch with his writerly voice. And I think it definitely comes through in this poetry collection. So, like I said, check it out. Give it a chance. And I think you'll find you'll be surprised. Now, once again, it was more the style back when he was writing these poems to rhyme at the end of every line. And I think there are a few poems in here that don't rhyme, or at least don't rhyme quite in that way. But a lot of them do. But once again, not knocking it, because I think a lot of the poets who are considered major influences on the craft today or in the past, like Robert Lowell, Theodore Rothke, Elizabeth Bishop, and Langston Hughes, people on that order, they started off rhyming, and particularly rhyming at the end of lines. So once again, it's definitely a skill, and it's one where it could be very difficult to pull off. So I commend Louis L'Amour for creating a poetry collection like this. So yeah, and finally, all right. Usually the books that I receive in my interdepartmental mailbox, quite frankly, I just toss a lot of them, or most of them, because, and I'm not knocking the creators of They Say, I Say, or anything that Norton usually produces, but I just find, based on the way I teach and how I teach, they're just not that helpful to me. But this was a complete surprise when I received this in my SUNY Oneana mailbox. And this is by Alice LaPlante, and it's called Write Yourself Out of a Corner. And this book basically has at least, well, has 100 exercises for you to develop your own writerly voice. And once I started leafing through this, I was like, wow. I was amazed. I was like, wow, I received this as a desk copy? I got this for free. Yeah, because like I said, just based on looking at the exercises and also hearing the breadth and depth of Alice LaPlante's years of writing and other sorts of advice, I mean, I think this is invaluable, to tell you the truth. And something that I'll definitely use in the fall with my creative writing section at SUNY Oneana. Because once again, I mean, just to get this for free in my departmental mailbox, that to me is just astounding, quite frankly. And like I said, just something, and it's not solely related to poetry. A lot of it is based in fiction, but I just wanted to give like a shout out to Alice LaPlante and whoever decide to send this out for free. Because yeah, this says Norton as well on the side. So like I said, I'm not knocking everything that Norton has created or has churned out. Because like I said, now and again you receive something like this where it's like, I didn't even know that I needed this book until I got it in my hands. So once again, whoever was in charge of disseminating this, I thank you immensely. And that's the poetry review for this, we'll say this month. Actually, it's probably more like a few months since I've done one of these videos. But, and I promise to do more in the future. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well. I'll talk to you soon. I mean, feel free to leave any comments on my YouTube feed, and I shall talk to you later. Take care.